After building our worksheet to calculate the net advantage of making versus buying of our CMBC, I want to prepare an if statement that will calculate the net advantage of one method versus the other. For instance, we can see right here, if we look at either our total cost or our incremental cost approach, that there's a $410,000 advantage to making our product. If we were to lower the price to say $250 from $300 for our outside supplier, we would have a $90,000 net advantage to buying. What I want you to do is put in an if statement to calculate or pick up a value. If the total, if buying is favorable, we want a $90,000 there, and the making then should remain blank. Let's go ahead and look at our if statement to do that. The basic form of an if statement is equals if, and then we specify a condition, and the results if that condition is true, or the results if it's false. And we can use double quotation marks with nothing in between to return a visually blank cell. Let's go ahead and use our formula. So let's go ahead and first $300, put our $300 price back in. Equals if, and in this case we're going to test the condition that if our cost of making is less than the cost of buying, then we would like to calculate the net advantage of making, which in this case would be the $3.8 million minus the $3,390,000. And if it's false, we could put any number of symbols here. We could put in a 999, in which case, notice, if this had been 250, we have the 999 returned. But in this case, I specified I don't want a number, I don't want a word. We could put in here maybe don't make, and it would show up as don't make, or if it was favorable to make, we would have the net advantage. But I've said let's just return a blank cell. So inside the quotation marks, we're going to have nothing. Alright, then the total cost for buying equals if, again our condition, if the total cost of buying is less than the total cost of making, then we would want to show the net advantage of buying, which would have been the cost of making minus the cost of buying. Otherwise, we'll return a blank value. Next thing in the worksheet, I want you to build a data table. I want you to examine how the impact of changing our price from our supplier would affect the net advantage or disadvantage of making our particular item. The first thing we're going to need to do is we need to link to or put into a formula for calculating the net advantage or disadvantage. Our net advantage of making, again, is simply the difference between the cost of buying minus the cost of making. So I've put in a formula here, and I'm going to calculate this value by changing the price from our suppliers. To build a data table, we highlight the rectangular region that includes our prices. These are going to be our outside supplier prices, and the item which we would like to calculate. Then we go up to Data. We go over to What If Analysis. Select Data Table. Our inputs are in a columnar format. So we come down to Column Input Cell. So we're saying we want to take these items in this column. We don't have to specify the location. We've done that by highlighting the cells that you see highlighted. We want to put that price into the price per unit from the outside supplier. And we can see here would be the net advantage or disadvantage of purchasing from an outside supplier. Notice at a price of $310, our net advantage of making the product is $410. Once we drop below $260, we would be at a disadvantage for making. Go ahead and again build a data table following the similar techniques to calculate the net advantage or disadvantage for making or buying as our percentage of avoidable manufacturing fixed costs change. We should find that as the percentage of avoidable fixed cost goes up, it makes more sense to consider purchasing from an outside supplier.